Hi everyone, welcome to my self-employment Q&A. So for those of you who don't know, I recently made the transition to full-time self-employment where I run my own business, and quite a few of you had questions about how it all happened, so I thought I would do a Q&A. So I asked you to send me your questions on Twitter at A Branch of Holly, and quite a few of you got back to me, so I'm just going to go through them all with you now. So the first question is from Rianne. Hi Rianne. And she says, how did you make the decision to go full-time? So this probably goes back to probably when I first started blogging. So I started off as a lifestyle blog, and it never crossed my mind that I would ever be able to do this full-time, so I kept it as a hobby. And then sort of about maybe a year later came across this the business side of things, where people were sharing their tips about blogging, and because I was working in digital marketing at the time, I thought that this would go really well and I could start sharing what I was learning about as well. And then it just sort of grew from there, and then I started seeing people, I started doing freelance writing bits here and there, and then came across the sort of virtual assistant world and thought actually this would sort of be really good for me to do full time, especially because at this point I was in like my 5th full-time job within 2 years. I was just couldn't settle, and that sort of made me think that the 9-to-5 life just isn't for me, and maybe this is my path. So don't know if I sort of made a conscious decision to actually do it, but then I sort of just realised that this is something that I wanted to try, and that's sort of how I made the decision, really. So the next question is from Kat. Hi Kat. And she says, how did you make/plan for the transition? Okay, so the first thing I should probably say here is that I was very lucky in that I have a very supportive family, and because they knew this was what I wanted, they were fully on board with helping me sort of achieve what I wanted to achieve. The one thing that I did know, the first thing I did probably was invest in a freelance writing course. But it wasn't just about improving your writing skills, it was about setting up your business as a whole, so the legalities of it, tax returns, all kinds of things. And the thing that I learned from that, and what I decided to do, was that I wasn't going to make the transition until I was replacing my current salary. The thing that I learned from talking to different entrepreneurs and business owners that I already know online in my network, they sort of gave me the advice that you shouldn't just jump into it without a plan. You should have like a concrete plan in terms of money, because you just don't know how some things are going to work out. I mean, it's all up to me to make sure that the work's coming in, and the fact that, you know, we're new homeowners and we've got a wedding coming up, I needed to make sure that I was earning enough to support us really and make sure that we can live comfortably. So in terms of planning for the transition, that was the goal, to make sure that I was replacing my current salary. So essentially what happened was I had to completely sacrifice everything and make sure that when I came home from my day job, I worked on my business, and then on a Saturday and a Sunday I worked on my business. I literally didn't do anything else for weeks and weeks, but thankfully, as I said, my family were really supportive. So yeah, I spent that time getting my business set up, getting clients, promoting myself. I was still doing my blog as well, because that's the main thing that's helped my business sort of prosper over these past few months, really, especially with the awards that I've been nominated for. So we sort of worked out an hourly rate for my virtual assistant services, and then I charge by the word for my freelance writing services. and then we sort of worked out how much we would need to then live comfortably from that, and that was the goal I was sort of working towards. And that's sort of how we planned for it, and the actual transition happened sooner than we expected, which I actually think is the next question. Yeah, so Natalie, hi Natalie. Natalie says, how long did it take to make it happen? So there's probably two ways of looking at this really. I think I first started sort of putting myself out there in terms of freelance writing in 2015. That's when I first started getting paid for freelance writing bits here and there. So I guess you could say that technically it has taken about 2 years, because there was a bit of time in between then when I went off the idea and then I started up again. So probably 2 years overall, but really we only started putting a proper plan in place at the start of this year, sort of like a New Year's resolution. I got my first client in May, I think. A friend needed some help with just sort of tasks on her list that she didn't have time to do, so I helped her with that. And then another girl that I know then hired me, and it just sort of grew from there. So that only took really, if I got my first client in May and then I left in August, what's that, May, June, like about 3 months. It was 2 years sort of over the long period of time, but only really 3 months in terms of like when I was working 24/7, not having a break from it, just pushing. So yeah, 3 months it took for me. I don't know if it's so different for each and every person. You know, if you're in the transition now, don't think, oh, I need to do it in 3 months, because really, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it did take me 2 years. So it just completely depends on where you're at, what support you have, and how much time you can dedicate to making it happen. Okay, so next is Becky. Hi Becky. Becky asks if there was a moment that you just knew you had to take the plunge, and the answer to this is yes, there was. So I had a couple of clients that I was coming home and then doing work on, so I was plodding along just okay, and then I had an email from someone who found me in the Being Boss Facebook group, and we went through all the motions of onboarding a new client, and they wanted to work with me, and they wanted to work with me for 30 hours a month, and this worked out at, I think it was about 7.5 hours more a week on top of my full-time job, on top of the other clients I had, and they were both working out at about, one was 5 hours a week and another was about 2.5 to 3 hours a week. And we looked at my sort of schedule and the time I had available at evenings and weekends, and we just knew it was not going to be possible for me to carry on at the capacity that I was. I could not take this new client on board without having to sort of have my notice in at my full-time job. So that's essentially what happened. And there was a period of time where I had to work my notice at my full-time job, but this new client had come on board, and that was the hardest month of my whole life. I was so exhausted, but you've got to do it, because I knew at the end of that then, you know, and obviously that client pays me quite a bit of money, which meant that I was meeting my goal of surpassing my current salary. So that then combined with the fact that it was just not going to be doable to do all that extra work on top of my full-time job, that's when I made the decision, and that's then when I went into my day job the next day and handed my notice in. Okay, so next one, Miranda. Hi Miranda. Miranda asks, have you ever had any negative comments about starting your own business? And if so, how did you deal with them? I'm probably going to jinx myself now. I've not really had to deal with that much negativity yet. The only thing really that I found from some people in terms of like my co-workers when I was at my day job and other people I knew, they when they were saying, oh, what are you going on to do, Holly? And I said, oh, I'm actually going self-employed, I'm going to run my own business. The reaction was like, ooh, oh, I don't know if I could do that, or oh, you're a brave girl, and that sort of made me shrivel up a bit and think, oh no, am I actually making the right decision here? It just gave me a lot of doubt, and they saying like, oh, I don't think I could do that, not knowing when the money's going to be coming in and things like that. So that was quite hard to deal with because it gave me a knockback really in terms of I didn't know if I was going to be able to do this. The way that I dealt with that was then I sort of came home and sort of talked to my parents and Tom, and they just reassured me and said, you know, the reason they might be saying that is because they want to do it but can't because of the position they're in, whereas you can. And I think it's more, I think with making the transition to self-employment, it's more about having the motivation and belief in yourself that you can do it. Obviously you've got to have the skill set and the knowledge and things for the field you're working in, but you've really got to be a certain type of person to be able to do it, because I was hearing one story about someone who really wanted to run their own business, and you know, they made the transition, they did it, but they struggled so much to even like get themselves up in the morning and motivate themselves to do the work. They had to go back into having a full-time job. So yeah, I think the most negative thing I've had to deal with is the mixed emotions, which obviously had a knockback effect on me, but the way I dealt with that was remembering why I'm doing this, why I want to do this. And everything I've sort of achieved, you've got to think of the whole road you've been on and everything you've achieved up until this point. And then that's sort of, you know, if you get a nice email from a client and things like that, that just sort of reaffirms that, yeah, you have made the right decision. Okay, so 2 more to go. Jess, hi Jess. Jess asked a couple of questions, so I'm going to go through them one by one just to make sure I cover them all. How many clients do you manage? So at the moment I am a subcontractor for one girl, and I work with about 3 of her clients, and I'm also going to start working for her brand as well. And then I currently work with another 5. I'm in the process of onboarding another and then I've just recently had another client inquiry as well. So at the moment altogether it's I probably work with about 6 clients. What does you ask now? How you all started working together? This really varies. The first one that I talked about, where I'm a subcontractor for the girl, I have known her for a while online. She posted on Instagram that she was looking to hire someone to help her, and I just sort of left just a comment saying, you know where I am if you need me, and she emailed and said, I can't believe I didn't think of you before, and that sort of went from there. One found me through a Facebook group, the Bean Boss Facebook group. One girl I've known again for a little bit of time, and that was through a recommendation, as were about 2 or 3 others, I think. And then the final one was from Twitter, I think. So the main way that I'm finding that I'm getting clients at the moment is through recommendations, but Facebook groups have proved to be quite successful for me as well. So that's how you started working. So yeah, so how we started working together. I'll just quickly run through the process that we go through with a new client. If you want me to talk about this in more detail, just leave me a comment and I'll add it to my list of video ideas for you. So there's a work with me page on my website, and a client just fills in a little form with the name, the website, how I can help them, and then I get back to them and say, really looking forward to working with you, thanks for all this information. Please find a link to my Calendly where you can set up a discovery call. So this is a tool where you can send your link to other people and they can book a slot with you, and then we hop on Skype usually, and I just have a list of questions I ask them about their brand, what they want from me, what they don't want from me. It just helps us get a bit clearer about the whole situation. And then we decide whether we're going to move forward. And if it's a yes, I put everything into a contract. We decide on the number of hours they want, or if it's writing, we decide on how many posts or email newsletters they want a month, that sort of thing. We both sign the contract, agree a start date, and then we get going. So that's a process I follow for every client. And then Jess goes on to ask, how did you know what to charge in the beginning, and did you raise your fees after a while? So I haven't raised my fees, oh, I've got a frog in my throat. I haven't raised my fees yet, purely because I'm still technically in the first month of running my business. I think the average is that you can raise your fees every 3 to 6 months. So I'll probably leave it a good 6 months just to make sure that everything's going okay and this is still what I want to do. And then it's recommended that I think you can raise your fees by up to 5%. So that will be my plan after 6 months, maybe at the start of next year. In terms of how I knew what to charge in the beginning, there's a lot of information out there with varying opinions and ideas, and it can be really difficult to know what to charge when you're listening to so much noise. So that's why I invested in a course and I decided to just listen to that person. So, you know, she gives you like a calculation to do for working out sort of if you pick your pick the salary you want to earn, and then you can do a calculation to then work out what you would charge hourly. That's one way of doing it. I did that for my virtual assistant services, my hourly rate, because what you've got to remember is you've got to pick an hourly rate, you know, so based on the salary you want to earn, and then work backwards. But then you've got to add tax and pension on top of that. So you're adding about 10 to 15% on top of your, you know, your figure, original figure. So that's how you get that. And then with writing, I really didn't know what to do. So in the writing course I was doing, she basically said, when you're starting out, don't charge less than £50 for every 500 words. So that's the ballpoint figure that I started off with. So you've got to go with what feels right for you. You know, don't undercharge yourself. There's been times where I felt really, really expensive and my rates aren't the highest at all. But, you know, we're all in this, we've all got to sort of make sure that we're living comfortably and you're earning what you're worth. So my advice would be to do what feels good for you, pick what you would like to earn and then work backwards from there. And don't try and take too much information on board, you know, just listen to one or two key people. Okay, so the last question is from Peter. Hi! Would you recommend multiple income streams when it comes to setting up your own thing and going it alone? Yes, I would recommend this. I haven't got multiple income streams yet, but it is something that I am planning to do. Because the great thing about it is that obviously you have your clients and, you know, you're getting monthly payments from them. But then say you want to take a holiday, you then miss out on a week of pay. So the good thing about having multiple income streams, like selling e-courses or e-books or having an online community where people pay a monthly fee, that is all passive income. So that will just naturally keep, you know, people will keep buying things will keep selling and that income will always be coming in, so it's almost like a cushion. So yeah, I really would recommend it, but you've got to make sure that you go about it in the right way. You know, you can't just pick a product, put it out there and sell it. You've got to make sure that one, you have the audience for it, and two, that it's what your audience wants. I have plans for creating infoproducts and passive income, but I am currently doing a lot of market research with my audience at the moment to make sure that it's what they want, it's going to be what they value. So it's exciting to work on these because they're your products, they're your things that you're putting out there into the world. You've just got to be a bit careful, but yeah, I would definitely, but obviously then saying that I would recommend it, I think you should definitely put the forefront of what you do for your business first. So if it's designing websites, or if it's graphic design, or whatever it is, you put that first, and then the passive income products will come after that. So they are all the questions. Thank you so much for sending those in. Really enjoyed answering them. I'm glad I've got to do this Q&A finally for you. I hope you found it useful. If there's anything else I've not covered, or something you've thought of, or if there's something you want me to go into in more detail, please leave me a comment below. I'll put different things I've talked about in the description box, or you can reach out to me on Twitter as well at a branch of holly. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.